You need to hear this if you're an American farmer, or care about where your food comes from. Stay informed with... Subscribe now for news that reveal the truth behind global events. Tonight, we're diving into a crisis in America's heartland. Farmers in Iowa, Illinois, and beyond are facing a harvest season like no other. For generations, their livelihoods depended on selling soybeans to China. But this year, the phones are silent. The big orders are gone. China, once the top buyer of US soybeans, has stopped buying, completely. This isn't a normal market dip, it's a boycott, triggered by a trade standoff. The grain elevators are quiet, and advance purchase orders have vanished. Farmers now face a mountain of unsold soybeans and plummeting prices. The cost to grow a bushel is higher than what they can sell it for. This is not sustainable. Families are being pushed to the brink. The silence from China signals a seismic shift in global agriculture. US farmers risk losing their most important customer for good. The numbers are grim, and the future is uncertain. This crisis didn't happen overnight. It's the result of years of escalating tensions. In May 2025, after new tariffs from former President Trump, China slammed the door shut. Now, as combines roll through golden fields, farmers are left with nowhere to send their crops. The global chess game has made American farmers pawns. Rural communities are feeling the squeeze, questioning if their way of life can survive. The world's food supply chain is being rewritten, and America's farmers are caught in the crossfire. The silence in the fields is more than just a lack of business. It's a warning. The stakes have never been higher for the families who feed the world. The question now, can they survive this storm? So, where did China turn for soybeans? South, to Brazil. As US-China trade tensions rose, Brazil stepped in as China's new supplier. This wasn't luck. Brazil had been preparing for years, ramping up production and building trust. In 2024, China imported over 100 million metric tons of soybeans, nearly 75 million from Brazil, just 22 million from the US. Even before the boycott, America's market share was slipping. China wanted reliability, and Brazil delivered, without the political drama. The US-China trade war forced China to diversify, and Brazil became the clear winner. Now, with the boycott, China's purchases have shifted almost entirely to Brazil. American farmers watch as Brazilian counterparts sign lucrative deals. China isn't just buying beans, it's investing in Brazil's ability to produce and export. This deepens their partnership, making the US less relevant. For Brazil, it's an economic boom. For the US, it's a loss that may be permanent. American farmers aren't just competing with Brazil, they're up against a Brazil-China alliance. The US is being designed out of the equation. The global soybean market has a new center of gravity. The shift is profound, and the consequences could last for decades. The US is no longer the default supplier. The fight to regain lost ground will be uphill and uncertain. Let's look at the numbers behind Brazil's rise. This year, Brazil is projected to produce 42% more soybeans than the US. For every 10 bushels an American farmer harvests, a Brazilian farmer harvests over 14. Brazil's harvest, 112 million metric tons, enough to meet all of China's needs alone. China no longer has to split orders between the US and Brazil. Brazil's production boom is the result of years of expanding farmland and adopting new technology. With lower costs and higher yields, Brazil can undercut US prices. Even if the trade dispute ended tomorrow, the US wouldn't simply reclaim its old market share. Brazil is now the go-to supplier for the world's biggest customer. American farmers are no longer the default choice, they're the alternative. The global market has shifted, and the US is on the defensive. Brazil's dominance is now the central fact of the soybean trade. The US faces a long, tough battle to win back contracts. The world has changed, and American farmers must adapt or risk being left behind. The numbers don't lie. Brazil is the new superpower in soybeans. The US must rethink its strategy to stay in the game. As the crisis deepened, former President Trump responded in his signature style. On August 11, 2025, He demanded on social media that China quadruple its soybean purchases. The next day, he signed an executive order extending a tariff truce by 90 days. Markets briefly rallied, but hope faded fast. Experts called Trump's demand unrealistic. China had already secured supplies from Brazil. Chinese officials signaled they could skip U.S. soybeans for the rest of the year. Trump's move was seen as political theater, not a real solution. No new contracts came. China even turned to Argentina for soy meal. The tweet and truce created a blip, but didn't fix the broken trust or supply chains. The standoff dragged on, and the harvest clock kept ticking. Farmers saw little change, just more uncertainty. The market's brief optimism faded into silence. The crisis remained unresolved, with no end in sight. While politicians argued, farmers faced disaster. The American Soybean Association warned the Trump administration the industry was on a financial cliff. Tariffs made U.S. soybeans 20% more expensive than South American beans. No buyer will pay that premium. Prices for November soybean futures dropped sharply, turning harvests into guaranteed losses. The cost to produce a bushel now exceeds the market price. Farmers are burning through savings and equity, with banks starting to call. This isn't just a bad year, it's the erosion of a lifetime's work. The risk of foreclosures and bankruptcies is real. Family farms passed down for generations are on the line. Why is Brazil winning? Cheaper production and smart investment. Land and input costs are lower, and a favorable exchange rate helps. But the real edge, billions in Chinese investment in Brazil's infrastructure. Ports, railways and storage have been upgraded to move soybeans efficiently to China. China is even building a new Pacific port in Peru to speed up shipments. The US focused on tariffs. China and Brazil built a superhighway for soybeans. American farmers face a vertically integrated Brazil-China system. The competition is no longer just about farming, it's about global strategy. For farm families, this crisis is personal. In Iowa, a fourth-generation farmer faces mounting debt and bins full of unsold soybeans. His daughter, back from college, crunches numbers. None of them add up. Selling now means a devastating loss. Holding on means more debt. The stress strains families and communities. Conversations are about survival. Can we make it to spring? Will we lose the farm? The emotional toll is as heavy as the financial one. Across the Midwest, families feel betrayed. Caught in a trade war they didn't start. Their legacy is slipping away, not from bad harvests, but from global decisions beyond their control. The dream of passing the farm to the next generation is in jeopardy. The crisis is rewriting what it means to be a farmer in America. The future of rural communities hangs in the balance. This crisis has deep roots. The US-China trade war began under Trump, with tariffs and retaliation. China targeted US soybeans, turning to Brazil. The Phase 1 trade deal brought a brief recovery, but China never fully met its purchase promises. Underlying tensions remained, and China kept building ties with Brazil. When trade flared up again in 2025, China was ready to cut the US out. The market, once lost and briefly regained, is now lost again. Maybe for good. Losing a market is easy, winning it back is hard. Every Brazilian shipment to China cements the new relationship. The first trade war broke old habits. The current standoff is making them permanent. The echoes of past conflicts are now a deafening warning. America's agricultural standing is at risk of permanent decline. The lesson global trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. The US must act fast, or risk being left behind for good. What's next? The future is uncertain. If Brazil's crop fails, China might return to US soybeans. But that's a risky hope. If Brazil's harvest succeeds, the US could be locked out for years. The fate of American farmers now depends on whether thousands of miles away. Politically, will the US and China find common ground, or will the standoff deepen? The longer the US is out, the harder it will be to return. New trade patterns could become permanent, erasing decades of American dominance. The global soybean market has been reshaped. Brazil is on top, and US farmers are in crisis. Only a major shift political or environmental, can change the game. Until then, America's heartland waits, hoping their way of life isn't lost forever.